Welcome to part 3 of the worst multi-class series, the series where you voted on the worst multi-classes and I have to build a build that I think is the best you can do given those multi-classes. Last video we struggled with Absurd, the every multi-class build, but in today's challenge we're tackling the second worst multi-class voted with 178 votes, the Rage Mage, the Barbarian Wizard build. Can the Macho Man vibe with the scrawny little nerd? Let's find out in today's video. This video is brought to you by the Crystals of Zleth, a survival solo campaign produced by Obvious Mimic. It's still in pre-release after kicking the absolute butt out of its Kickstarter, making over $100,000. I've personally played an Obvious Mimic solo campaign and it was a blast, and I'm really excited to play this one. So join the other thousands of people who are picking up this book, but unlike them, you can get it at a discount, which you can find in the description below. And with that, back to the Rage Mage. Let's begin with the challenges of this build. Now, the primary challenge that most people think of when they think of the Rage Mage is that barbarians, while raging, can't cast spells nor concentrate on them. Honestly, there's a pretty straightforward answer to this challenge and that problem. You're gonna be taking 5 to 8 levels in Barbarian. Why? Because 5 to 8 levels in Barbarian is absolutely phenomenal. But as soon as you hit level 9 as Barbarian, all of a sudden you're basically getting nothing in your levels. You get very, very little for that second half of Barbarian's lifespan. On top of that, Barbarians are notoriously weak to the worst saving throw to be weak against, which is wisdom saves. And once you hit level 5 and beyond, wisdom saves get so common, and when they hit you and you can't resist them, you're all of a sudden turning against your teammates, or paralyzed forever, you're frightened forever, you're charmed forever. You don't get to play the game. Now, a simple solution to this is once you're in that 5 to 8 level range, instead of going to 9 Barbarian, you go bounce into War Magic Wizard. Just 2 level dip is going to give you +4 on every single saving throw at least once per round. This isn't a huge sacrifice. Sure, you had to take a little bit less constitution in order to get that 13 intelligence required for the multi-class, but that's just 1 HP less per level, and we don't concentrate on anything with as a barbarian, so really we're giving up very, very little in order to have better saving throws in the tail end of the game. I think this is probably the simplest way to multi-class wizard and barbarian. But here's my problem with it, is you're not actually a Rage Mage, you're just a barbarian. With a little bit more of utility out of combat, sure, but you're just a barbarian with better saving throws and a little less health. That's not what I want from my Rage Mage, so I'm going to be adapting this build to do something a little different. By the end of this build, I want to sometimes be raging, be a beast, sometimes want to be a spellcaster, sometimes want to mix the two and be a Gish. I want a ton of flexibility in my build, so I'm going to do that here and show you the potential of Rage Mage. Given our new criteria, let's once again go look at our spells. We're going to need a spell that's going to be usable in Rage, so it has to be castable beforehand, and then it has to last a while, concentrationless, and be a good spell. There's a simple answer to this question, and it's Armor of Agathis. Not only is Armor of Agathis normally a great spell, it's also going to synergize with being a barbarian, because Rage is going to reduce our incoming damage, but it doesn't reduce the outgoing damage, and so our Armor of Agathis will last longer when we're facing people who do bludgeoning, slashing, or piercing damage, aka nearly everyone in the frickin' game. But wizards don't get Armor of Agathis, so how are we going to get it? Well, there's newly an easy answer to that problem. You take the Rune Carver background. The Rune Carver background lets you get a feat which lets you pick up Armor of Agathis as a free spell that you can cast with your spell slots, and as we level up, it's going to let you pick up a couple more spells along the way. Now, is every DM going to let you take a feat from your background? Probably not, but this channel is based in Raw, and that's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it makes a build work, sometimes it makes a build not work, but here's the thing is, if you don't get to take the Rune Carver, you can take Variant Human, or you can take Custom Lineage and go ahead and pick it up from there. But in this build, we're going to be assuming that you can pick up the Rune Carver background. So which lineage are we going to take given the Rune Carver background? Well, we're going to want more damage reduction, and we're going to want to do that without any spells attached to it. So Shatter Kai and Goliath come to mind. But here's the thing, Shatter Kai gives us extra mobility, which a barbarian is always going to appreciate. On top of the damage resistance, it's also going to give us dark vision. It's also going to give us resistance to falling asleep and being charmed. So Shatter Kai is just probably the most powerful lineage in the game, so let's go ahead and take it here. With this setup, we realistically can go standard array, point buy, or roll for stats. So this build is an option for whatever your DM is setting up. You're just going to need to make sure you have 13 in intelligence at least, but ideally closer to 14. From there, we're going to want strength as our primary, 14 in dexterity for medium armor, and then the remainder into constitution as high as we can get it. So given our build is now ready, let's jump into that level by level breakdown. Barbarians are insane at low levels. So we're going to be taking barbarians in between levels 1 and and 5 and 1 and 8. There's a bit of debate on 6, 7, 8. You can go either way. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get there. But in the meantime, barbarians are so good in these early levels. First level, we're picking up Rage. Rage is fantastic, we do extra damage, we take a bunch of it less damage, we're powerful, all the good things. Level 2, we get Reckless Attack, probably Barbarian's best feature, and that's including over Rage. It's insanely good. Makes us extremely consistent, makes us be able to pick up some big feats and do a ton of damage. Very, very powerful. Third level, we're going Ancestral Guardian. This is going to allow us every time we hit an enemy, they're going to be marked. A marked enemy attacks all of our allies at disadvantage, and our allies have resistance to any damage they do. In other words, it's almost pointless to attack anyone other than us. And we just so happen to have Armor of Agathis. So how I'm going to be using Armor of Agathis at these levels is just casting it and forgetting about it and trying to predict a fight. I basically never want to cast it in a fight. Sure, sometimes it's going to be wasted. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Just move on. You're still basically going to be a full-on barbarian with just a couple less HP. So you're going to be just fine. You're so powerful as a barbarian at these levels. But Armor of Agathis isn't the only synergy. We also have Shatterkai's Misty Step. What's amazing about this is now if we Misty Step and then hit an enemy, if they attack us, we also have resistance to the damage, so they basically have no good choices. We can also do something like this though. We can hit an enemy and then we can Misty Step away so they can't attack us at all, say if they're a melee combatant. So their only choice is to go after our allies, who they're going to be attacking at disadvantage with resistance. Trust me, it doesn't matter who your ally is, if they have disadvantage and resistance on their side, they're a tank. At level 4, we're going to get an ASI. I'm going to pick up Strength here. Now here's the thing, is we're more like a Gish than a normal Barbarian is. And on a Gish build, similar to like a Paladin, often I think 18 of Strength is enough, and then you want to go into your secondary stat. And that's because 18 Strength is enough to be a threat on the front line, and then we can start investing in more of our backline abilities or support abilities. Now these next 3 levels, these are debatable, so I really want you to pick and choose which levels are important to you and which ones aren't. Level 6 in Barbarian is going to allow us to use a reaction to reduce some damage our teammates take, making us more of a tank, utilizing only our reaction. Additionally, we get an extra Rage, and that's really important because us marking enemies and protecting them is only usable while raging. Level 7, we're going to get advantage on initiative rolls, which is actually really powerful as a spellcaster. Think about Hypnotic Pattern. If you get advantage on your initiative roll, you're more likely to hit a big group of enemies because of that advantage. You also get a bit of extra mobility when we rage, which is always nice. And finally, 8th level is another ASI, something we probably use to bump intelligence, so as we jump into Wizard, we're going to have more intelligence to do some cool things with it. Alternatively, if you want to focus less on the saving throw elements of being a Wizard, you can go into Constitution, so you have better concentration and can take more hits. However, here's the thing to consider is that as a spellcaster, you scale phenomenally well. Every 2 levels, you're getting another spell level, and those are insanely big jumps. Think about from 2nd level to 3rd level spells. Night and day difference. One is just absolutely ending fights, and one's a solid buff, right? By taking these 3 levels in Barbarian, we're losing basically 2 levels of spell slots by the end of our career and throughout. So when we're casting 1st level spells, we could have been casting maybe 3rd level spells. So it is a big commitment to give up on the Wizard, but there's some good things in this Barbarian too, and that's why I'm leaving it to you guys. But no matter what you choose, level 9 and onward is going to be Wizard. Let's talk about one of the problems the other Rage Mage has. It's that after you take those 2 levels in War Magic, where are you going? Are you going back into Barbarian only to go level 9 Barbarian and have the same problem I was talking about before, where Barbarians kind of suck from level 9 onwards until you hit level 20, but because you put some levels in Mage, you don't even have level 20 to look forward to. Compared to this build, where instead of going back to Barbarian at all, you're going full in on Mage. And why are we going full in on Mage? Let's break it down a little bit. Out of combat spells, we largely get 6 1st level spells, we can do a bunch of ritual casting. Just Find Familiar alone is going to give us like 200% more things to do out of combat than a normal Barbarian would have. Level 2, we're going to be going into Abjuration Wizard. Abjuration Wizard has a ton of synergies with what we're doing. 1, it's going to give us a ward. This ward is going to give us some extra health, and that extra health goes further because of raging. On top of that, the ward goes over Armor of Agathis, so it makes Armor of Agathis last even longer. On top of that, every time we cast Armor of Agathis, it restores some HP on this ward. Now I want you to think about something for a second. If we were going into Barbarian, every 2 levels, we'd be getting about 19 extra HP approximately. Now by going into Abjuration Wizard, we're going to be getting approximately 13 HP. So we're 6 HP left. However, our Armor of Agathis is going to get an additional +5 to it. So instead of being 5, it's going to be 10. So that's 5 more. So let's add that to the 13, making it 18. However, our Arcane Ward gets an additional 4 HP on top of it. So let's add that to the 18, going to 22. So we're getting 22 extra HP when we take into account a single cast of Armor of Agathis. Then you have to keep in mind that it also is multi-castable because we have multiple spell slots. And on top of that, when we cast it when our ward's down, it also heals our ward. So even though we're going in Wizard instead of Barbarian, there is a big argument for us actually being more tanky than we were beforehand. And what's interesting is that not only is this tankiness more powerful, it also deals damage. How is a Ancestral Guardians Barbarian normally doing a ton of damage? They're mostly tank oriented, right? Well, with Armor of Agathis, we're changing our tankiness into damage output. So not only are we protecting the team better, we're also hurting our enemies more. And those are the two things you need to do to win the frickin' fight. Now that's the idea behind going into Wizard. And as we get more levels into Wizard, we're going to start increasing our optional playstyles. Let's talk about once we hit Wizard 5 and we get 3rd level spells. We have multiple different playstyles at this point. Our first playstyle is just Armor of Agathis, Rage, go in and be a Barbarian. Double points if you're able to Armor of Agathis before the combat starts, which will be more often than you think, especially considering it lasts an hour and we can cast a ton of times if we need to. This is playstyle number 1. This is basically a raging Barbarian beast, and it just works as a Barbarian should. You go find the craziest, biggest bad guy and you go toe to toe with them, basically make it a one-on-one, make them keep hitting your Armor of Agathis. You're solid. Playstyle number 2 is we get surprised. Now, when we get surprised, we may not have time to cast Armor of Agathis, so we might just rage and go be a Barbarian. We're still a decent Barbarian no matter what, because we still have multi-attack. We still have everything a Barbarian basically is, because they get basically nothing past level 9. So it doesn't matter if it's a 14th level Barbarian or an 8th level Barbarian. They're nearly the same frickin' thing. Yes, there's some little differences, but they're not big. Now, playstyle number 3 and 4 opens up once we hit Wizard 5. Playstyle number 3 is that we can kind of play like a Gish. Instead of raging, we can just go up and fight people using multi-attack, almost like a fighter type style, but now we can mix it with our 3rd level spells. We can be tossing fireballs, so we can play kind of a Gish style, which is pretty neat. This is also another option if we're surprised. We also have an additional option where we kind of be a concentration caster. Sure, our intelligence isn't great, but if you're hitting 6 different enemies with a spell, some of them are gonna fail it. So spells like Hypnotic Pattern can be incredibly powerful when we're facing big groups, and that's something Barbarians normally can't deal well with, especially Ancestral Guardian Barbarian. They're really good at single targets, but what if we're facing a group? Well, 5th level in Wizard allows us to really manage that group. And we can do this either by, being a concentration caster from the backline and using cantrips and be ranged if we want to really protect our concentration, or instead of cantrips, we can smack them in the face with an axe. I love this flexibility. It takes the Rage Mage in it and it acts like a Rage Mage should act. Sometimes a mage, sometimes rage. Yes, they don't mix well, but by having both, we gain tons more flexibility. So did we do our job? Yeah, I would say yes. I actually disagree with the community on this one, that I think the Rage Mage is actually pretty good. Arguably better than just a straight Barbarian. I'm thinking at level 14, for example, I'd rather be the Rage Mage than the Barbarian, more often than not. Certainly true for 13, certainly true for 10. Sure, there's gonna be a couple slow levels, but overall I think it's pretty dang good. So I'm happy to showcase that here. However, I cannot say the same thing about the next multi-class, the #1 worst multi-class voted by you guys. And unlike this one, unlike the Rage Mage, I totally agree with you guys. This multi-class sucks. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. And I'll see you there, guys. Peace.